Greetings, friends, fellow patriots, fellow citizens, and even non-citizens, and welcome to this week's edition of the We the People Convention Weekly News and Opinion Podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and I'm the host of this podcast, and I'm the president of the We the People Convention organization. And this podcast and our website and our text messages and our emails and our social media posts and our promotion and our donations to other conservative groups across the nation are all paid for through the generous donations of the donors to the We the People Convention. And we thank them, all of you who donate, some of you for 15 years now, for your generous donations of your hard-earned money. If you are able to join them, if you have the wherewithal to help us in our fight to protect and defend individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity, please go to wethepeopleconvention.org, right on the front page, click on the donate button, and give a monthly donation. Even if it's $5 or $10, that helps us with cash flow. So thank you to our donors. We greatly appreciate you. Wow, what a week to be an American. What a week to be alive, to be a citizen of this planet, to be an Israeli, to be, alive, to see the transformation that Donald Trump is bringing to not only America, but to the world. It's breathtaking. I don't know. I mean, I know a few months ago we had a week like this where I said, oh my gosh, so much good happened. And this week is just beyond belief. And we're going to cover it all, and we're going to celebrate it all, and we're going to be aware of the dangers and the problems. But my fellow Americans, you are blessed to be alive at this time. You and I are blessed to be alive, to be part of this, not just witnessing it. We're not spectators. Those of you who watch this podcast, we take action in defense of individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. And I showed you last week how your actions pay off, okay? And this week, your actions are fighting back in 2016 to elect Donald J. Trump against all odds and against the cheaters and the deep state and the corrupt media and everything aligned against us, paid off in spades because we got the Supreme Court justices that Donald Trump appointed, and that effort paid off this week, yesterday on Friday. It's breathtaking, and we are restoring the Constitution. We are restoring the way our founders wanted our nation run and taking it away from the corrupt lawyers and judges who've destroyed it bit by bit over 200, almost 50 years now. We're restoring our Constitution. We're restoring the rule of law, and we're bringing peace, not just here, but to the world. And so thank you for joining us. If you're new, and I'll talk more at the end of the podcast, but we had 3,000 new viewers on YouTube. Welcome to you. Welcome to you. That's growing. We've got, more people joining all the time. And so, those of you who've been with us forever, God bless you, because we wouldn't be here without you. But now it's so exciting to bring so many thousands more to watch this podcast. Why? Because we can't defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity if we don't understand what's going on, what threatens that, and we don't have a plan for how to defend ourselves against those threats. That's why you're watching this podcast. We're going to share a lot of information, and we're going to give you tools to share it with others. And then if there's things that need to be done, we're going to point that out and show you how to act in defense of your own and our national and our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So I just can't wait to get into this podcast. So I'm going to just jump right in, because last week, after this podcast ended on Saturday, the 21st, that night, the U.S. bombed 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. We didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming. We were having a huge debate, right? We talked last week about the debate of whether President Trump should intercede or not. He had given them 2 weeks notice, and then, wow, he did it. He pulled the trigger. Last Saturday night, after days of deliberation and intense Israeli air campaigns that paved the way, President Donald Trump ordered the U.S. military to do an airstrike to eliminate Iran's nuclear infrastructure. Trump said, "We have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordow, Nance, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside Iranian airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordow. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter." All right. And in the midst of that, we had Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon and many other people on the conservative side, and I would say on the MAGA side, saying this is horrible. Netanyahu sucked them in. This is World War III. This is the never-ending war. There goes the whole MAGA agenda. And I said last week, we have to trust Trump. Either you trust him or you don't. And the difference is real simple. We had the never-ending wars because no president would end them except for Donald Trump. And so Donald Trump, I said, will not allow that. And what he did was a surgical strike. And so, right after that happened, there was lots of controversy, okay? And there was a press conference that was held with Hegseth and General Raisin Cain. But then there was, they started to show the evidence. Report, Iran nuclear facilities destroyed. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard said on Wednesday that new intelligence has shown that U.S. strikes on Iran set back the country's capacity to produce nuclear weapons, disputing a report that it would only give the regime a few months delay that we'll talk about next and talk about what a scandal that was. New intelligence confirms that POTUS had stated numerous times Iran's nuclear facilities have been destroyed. If the Iranians chose to rebuild, they would have to rebuild all 3 facilities entirely, which would take years to do, Gabbard wrote on a post on X on Wednesday. Multiple media outlets citing anonymous sources reported that the Defense Intelligence Agency found that strikes on 3 Iranian facilities over the past weekend were not as significant as what was publicly claimed. Those reports also claimed that Iran moved much of its uranium supply before the airstrikes. That's bull. That's a deep state attempt to degrade President Trump and our U.S. military and try to, undermine what he did. We're going to debunk all of that right now, okay? So it starts because right after this happened, Trump goes to Europe for a major NATO meeting. And so we had questions there, and they were getting answered. So here's the first video clip.
No, first of all this stuff about the intelligence, this is what a leaker is telling you the intelligence says. That's the game these people play. They read it, and then they go out and characterize it the way they want it characterized, and they're leakers. This is the game they play. So that's number one. Number two, here's a fact. The conversion facility, which you can't do a nuclear weapon without a conversion facility, we can't even find where it is, where it used to be on the map. You can't even find where it used to be because the whole thing is just blackened out. It's gone.
It's wiped out.
It's wiped out. Then we dropped 12 of the strongest bombs on the planet right down the hole in 2 places. Everything underneath that mountain is in bad shape. And I refer you to the statement of the IAEA, Mr. Grossi. You know what he said? He said there was Iran, the way it looked the day before the attack, and what their nuclear program looks like now. 2 very different things. They are way behind where they were just 7 days ago. Now, anything in the world can be rebuilt. But now we know where it is, and if they try to rebuild it, we'll have options there as well. But all this leaker stuff, these leakers are professional stabbers. That's what they are. They go out and they read this stuff, and then they tell you what it says against the law, but they characterize it for you in a way that's absolutely false. There's no way Iran comes to the table if somehow nothing had happened. This was complete and total obliteration. They're in bad shape. They are way behind today compared to where they were just 7 days ago because of what the president did.
Okay, so there you have it. And if you go to wethepeopleconvention.org, I posted an interview with Maria Bartiromo and Secretary of State Marco Rubio in our video section. And then I texted out and emailed out. If you don't get our texts or emails, go to wethepeopleconvention.org, right in the front, and give it to us, because I send a lot of important information to you. But I said that Marco Rubio interview I thought was the best video I could find that explained why we did what we did, how we did it, and what that means going forward. So go to wethepeopleconvention.org, click on the video section. It's like a 27-minute video with Marco Rubio. It was really good. And I'm trying to share with you the best information I can find. So again, the leakers are saying, oh, you didn't really destroy it. You didn't destroy the sites. It was just minor damage. And oh, by the way, they moved the materials out of there before you attacked. These are CNN and the New York Times. And the woman that reported on CNN is exactly the same woman. And I won't give you her name because I don't even want to, give them any more, credit. But she's the same woman who reported on Russia, and reported that the Hunter Biden laptop was wrong. Was a Russian disinformation. The same exact woman. You can't believe him. We don't believe him. And then Trump and his team went full crazy nuts, just destroying them. I mean, Pete Hegseth at that press conference just literally said, you CNN, you New York Times, you are anti-American. You are undermining this because you hate Trump and you hate our military. There was no punches being pulled. But their other claim was, oh, they moved it all. They moved it all. Yeah, not easy to do. And like what? We're not watching? We don't have a bazillion satellites watching every damn thing that's going on in a place like Iran? Come on, give me a break. U.S. intel confirms Iran failed to move nuclear materials before Trump strikes, Senator reveals. Okay? And so Senator Mark Wayne Mullen from Oklahoma revealed on Monday that U.S. intelligence contradicts claims that Iran moved nuclear materials before President Trump's weekend airstrikes, which the center believes severely damaged, if not completely destroyed, Iran's nuclear weapons capability. Satellite imagery taken prior to the attack, circulated across social media over the weekend, revealed trucks surrounding Fordo allegedly poised to haul away nuclear material, which the center rejects. Iran and Israel are claiming that they moved some material, Mullen said. Our intelligence reports say they didn't. In fact, we actually believe they stored more of it in Fordo because they believed it was impenetrable. They didn't believe we could hit it, the Oklahoma Republican said in an interview on CNBC's Squawk Box. The Fordo facility, located 300 feet underneath the mountain, was one of 3 nuclear sites targeted by American airstrikes on Saturday. We had the ability to destroy things that people think were undestroyable, and we think we did a really good job. Spencer Ferragoso, senior research fellow at the Institute for Science and International Security, echoed Mullen's sentiment, telling the Washington Post that the satellite images taken prior to the attack appear to feature dump trucks intended to reinforce Fordo, not evacuate it. And we later found that what the Iranians had done is they had put a layer of concrete over the top of the facility, thinking that would help protect it. And that's what those trucks were for. And in the press briefing that happened, with Hegseth and General Raising Kane, they said the first bomb blew that to hell. The second bomb went down the shaft, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and there is no nuclear program, okay? He said if they evacuated any equipment, it had to happen prior to filling out the filling of the tunnels, Virgo said, pointing out that using dump trucks to transport uranium and centrifuges could easily damage them and hazardous chemicals would leak. It would be a large and complicated undertaking, and it just didn't happen. So they're lying. We have a responsibility to destroy their lies, to make sure people understand that they were lying. And so you can use our chapters player on our podcast page to share links to just that story in our video, okay? But you also, on our podcast page, every article I talk about in this podcast will be linked so you can click on it, see the article, and then share that with everyone you know. That's our responsibility. Our job is to make sure that we educate our fellow citizens and show them what we believe to be truth and debunk what we believe to be lies. And that's just what happened. Now, I've posted on our website, and the stories about, the nuke facilities are destroyed. On that page, I've got the video, a full video of the podcast, or of the press conference with Hegseth and with General Raising Kane. Powerful stuff, emotional things. If you will be filled with pride about our U.S. military. Many of you have heard the story that General Kane talked about the subsequent Iranian retaliation of the base in Qatar, and how just a handful of U.S. soldiers at that base used our missile defense system to shoot down every one of those. And the oldest person on duty was 28 and the youngest was 21. And it's just awesome. And so this story, though, I think was the video I'm going to show you now. I chose it because I think it says a lot about our U.S. military that we forget and don't understand. And I think this surprised a lot of people in the world. So watch this video.
Next move to a walkthrough of the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator weapon, and share a little bit about the planners who did this and their work on the weapon. First, let me set the stage for you. There's an organization in the U.S. called the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, DTRA. DTRA does a lot of things for our nation, but DTRA is the world's leading expert on deeply buried underground targets. In 2009, a Defense Threat Reduction Agency officer was brought into a vault at an undisclosed location and briefed on something going on in Iran. For security purposes, I'm not going to share his name. He was shown some photos and some highly classified intelligence of what looked like a major construction project in the mountains of Iran. He was tasked to study this facility, work with the intelligence community to understand it, and he was soon joined by an additional teammate. For more than 15 years, this officer and his teammate lived and breathed this single target, Fordow, a critical element of Iran's covert nuclear weapons program. He studied the geology. He watched the Iranians dig it out. He watched the construction, the weather, the discard material, the geology, the construction materials, where the materials came from. He looked at the vent shaft, the exhaust shaft, the electrical systems, the environmental control systems, every nook, every crater, every piece of equipment going in and every piece of equipment going out. They literally dreamed about this target at night when they slept. They thought about it driving back and forth to work, and they knew from the very first days what this was for. You do not build a multi-layered underground bunker complex with centrifuges and other equipment in a mountain for any peaceful purpose. They weren't able to discuss this with their family, their wives, their kids, their friends, but they just kept grinding it out. And along the way, they realized we did not have a weapon that could adequately strike and kill this target. So they began a journey to work with industry and other tacticians to develop the GBU-57. They tested it over and over again, tried different options, tried more after that. They accomplished hundreds of test shots and dropped many full-scale weapons against extremely realistic targets for a single purpose: kill this target at the time and place of our nation's choosing. And then, on a day in June of 2025, more than 15 years after they started their life's work, the phone rang and the President of the United States ordered the B-2 force that you've supported to go strike and kill this target. Yesterday, I had the incredible honor and privilege of spending time with these two Defense Threat Reduction Agency officers who've given so much. One of them said, quote, "I can't even get my head around this. My heart is so filled with the pride of being a part of this team. I am so honored to be a part of this." To you both, thank you, and thank you to your families. Operation Midnight Hammer was the culmination of those 15 years of incredible work. The air crews, the tanker crews, the weapons crews that built the weapons, the load crews that loaded it.
Wow. 15 years preparing for this. And when the strike happened, you saw like Jennifer Griffith on Fox talking about how they war game all these things, like China invading Taiwan. There's people been studying that for 15 years. I guess that's what we get for spending $800 million a year on defense. So it was awesome to see that kind of commitment and then see it executed perfectly. And let me assure you, this was not just stopping Iran's nuclear weapons. This was sending a message to Russia, to China, to North Korea, to every bad actor. You better understand, you don't even know what you're dealing with. You don't even know what we can do. Because what we just did, they can't do, they can't even imagine. And so I'll put this article on our page, Why U.S. Strikes on Iran Sent a Strong Message to Beijing. Experts say dictators can't predict Trump's moves, making them genuinely afraid of him. Okay? But let me add more to that. For instance, guess what? The Chinese communist leaders have bunkers outside of Beijing in this mountain range, and their bunkers aren't as deep as Fordo was. Hello? There's a war. You're going to die. Think that might be a deterrent? Russia is getting the message. Because guess what I said last week? I talked a little bit about Iran was making drones for Russia to use against Ukraine. They ain't making those drones anymore. Their country's collapsing. Right? It's just amazing. And so this wasn't just, we've got to stop Iran's nuclear program. We did. We knew that. 90% of Americans said yes. And people supported this attack as long as it didn't lead to a never-ending war, right? And guess what? Shocked the hell out of me. Shocked you, I'm sure. Like, by Sunday, Trump announces a ceasefire. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? He basically says, oh yeah, we blew up their nuclear facilities, and they both agreed. Israel and Iran have agreed to a ceasefire, which to this day, a week later, this Saturday the 28th, has held. Wow. Holy cow. President Donald Trump on June 23rd announced that Israel and Iran have agreed to a ceasefire, declaring the beginning of an end to what he referred to as the 12-day war, tying into the 6-day war with Israel and Egypt, the 12-day war. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended, Trump said in a post on his Truth Social platform, just after 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Wow. The president wrote that both sides would wind down their final military operations within 6 hours and begin what he expected to be a peaceful and respectful ceasefire on both sides. After 24 hours, the conflict will be declared over. Now, unfortunately, and I think many of you heard President Trump say a really vulgar swear word because Israel said, we've got 6 hours. So they attacked Iran and dropped the most bombs they dropped on them since they started fighting Iran. And then Iran fired some missiles back, and Trump was pissed. And you could tell he had a serious conversation with Netanyahu, and it stopped. And it's held. And now he's like, okay, let's figure out what you're going to do. Because fighting makes no sense. And as far as the nuclear reactors and whether they can rebuild them or not, it's real simple. If you rebuild them, we'll just bomb them again. So what sense does that make? He's pushing for peace in the Middle East. Oh my gosh, peace in the Middle East. My heart beats still. How could that ever happen? Yeah, remember the Abraham Accords that Trump should have won the Nobel Peace Prize for in his first term, where he got Islamic nations to join with Israel? Well, guess what they're talking about now? Adding all kinds of more countries in the Middle East to the Abraham Accords. Real peace. He's not playing around. He's not a moron like Obama, who's bombing U.S. citizens with drones and stuff just to do one thing that means nothing. Trump wants peace more than anything. He's sincere about it. He's intent about it, and he's acting. He's backing it up with actions. And so, wow. I tell you guys all the time that this podcast comes from you, our members. You write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org, and you send me story links and video links. This particular video came from one of our longtime supporters and funders and advisors, Joe from Cleveland, sent this Lindsey Graham video to me where he spoke on the Senate floor this week. The threat is real. I choose to stand up to evil, is what Lindsey Graham said. Now, I had rejected Joe's email. He sent it to me. I said, Joe, I don't like Lindsey Graham. I don't trust Lindsey Graham. And he said, Tom, trust me. You've got to post this video and people got to watch it. And then he sent me the transcript. So if you go to wethepeopleconvention.org, in the video sections, not only will you see that Marco Rubio video I just mentioned, you'll see this. It's a short video, 27-minute video of Lindsey Graham making the case for regime change in Iran and basically explaining what we all know but haven't said enough. And he just said it on the floor of the Senate. Radical Islam is as big a threat to us as communism. And many of you have heard about the red-green axis, okay? And that the Muslims and the communists are joining together, and we'll talk about the idiotic, election in New York with the Marxist mayor, who is the symbol of the red-green axis, to destroy the West. They are our enemies. I ask you and urge you to watch the Lindsey Graham video or read the transcript and share it so you can understand better and you can educate your fellow citizens better about what Trump is really doing. Because it is a threat not just to Israel, but to us, to the United States, to the Western world, to Europe that we're addressing. And no one else in the last 50 years has been willing to address it, but Donald J. Trump, who you and I spent so much of our blood, sweat, tears, money, and effort to make sure he was the president at this time in history, at this critical time. That's why we did what we did. That's why we do what we continue to do, literally daily. Protect and defend our nation and our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. And so, again, the first lie was, oh, you didn't really destroy them. Bullcrap. Oh, they moved the materials. You didn't destroy those. Bullcrap. Oh, now, Trump, you've really done it. Maybe you didn't start World War III, but now we're going to be attacked by these Iranians that Joe Biden let in, right? Who are sleeper cells. Well, okay, let's play that game. ICE operation catches Iranian illegals, including terror suspects. Let's see. The arrest took place over 48 hours starting on Sunday, June 22nd. So we bomb. FBI, DOJ is on it. Federal agents arrested 11 Iranian nationals, including a watchlisted individual over a 48-hour period of a target operation across 8 states and 9 cities. My understanding is that we've already arrested like 670 of these Iranian terrorists who Joe Biden and the radical communist left, who stole the 2020 election, installed the incoherent Joe Biden used the auto pen to implement a communist agenda of open borders, get rid of our energy, help start a war with Russia and Ukraine, don't defend Israel. That was their agenda, okay? And so they let these people in, but you haven't seen any terrorist attacks, have you? Because finally, our people are focused on defending America. All right? Now, I'm not saying there's not going to be one or two or three. Who knows? You know what? That's the price we have to pay. That's what war is about. We don't go through this and nothing happens. Okay? Understand that. You can't go nuts. Say, oh, 3 people were killed by a Muslim and we got to stop everything. No. We have a righteous agenda. We, the people, understand. We, the people who, believe in this country, understand there's a price to be paid. And our sons and daughters have just joined the military in record numbers that I told you last week. And they just performed unbelievably well in this bombing mission and in the defense of the missile attack in Qatar. We understand we're in the fight for our lives, and we are willing to fight that fight, even if the left isn't. So what do the left do? What do Democrats do? It's beautiful. They are helping us so much. They are just destroying themselves. Democrats fume at unserious Trump impeachment vote. That's right. The President of the United States just acted to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon and intercontinental ballistic weapons that they would use to attack the United States mainland. And what do the Democrats do? They move to impeach him. Can't make this up. House Democrats privately vented their fury Tuesday about what they said is a premature and unhelpful vote on impeaching President Trump for his strikes on Iran. The outcome, 128 Democrats sided with House Republicans to block Representative Al Green of Texas, Democrat of Texas, a total nut job, from bringing a Trump impeachment vote, including most of Democratic leadership. Just 79 House Democrats, mostly progressives in safe districts, stood with Green on trying to force the vote. A completely unserious and selfish move, one House Democrat told Axios on condition of anonymity to speak candidly about his colleague. Another House Democrat said, there is a lot of anger about the vote, adding, I think you heard it from leadership today. They're frustrated. Most people think it's unhelpful. Several lawmakers noted that House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries voted against the resolution, as did former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Many lawmakers also argued that Green's measure was weak on its merit, even more so than the articles of impeachment Representative Sherry Tonder, the Democrat from Michigan, is another nut job, nearly forced in May. What a message to China and Russia. After we take military action, we try to impeach the president, said Representative Jared Moskowitz of Florida. Like, what are you doing? And Americans supported this. And you're doing another 90-10 thing, and you're taking the side of the 10. A 6th House Democrat said they were not even clear the courts would uphold the impeachment, knowing that the debate over the constitutional war powers is fiercely contested. They're imploding. They are rudderless. They have no agenda but hate Trump, and in the process, destroy America, destroy your life, destroy your family, your jobs, your economy, your country. They're just destroying themselves, and we applaud them. Keep going. You think those votes won't come up, in the 2026 election? Yeah. So, and then you can't fix stupid, right? So many don't know this. Literally right now, I'm recording this broadcast on June 28th at about 10 o'clock in the morning, and you're going to see it this Saturday. They're putting up fences around the White House and the U.S. Treasury because this is going to happen. There's a national march on Washington today. Stop the war on Iran. Saturday, June 28th at 1 p.m. Stop what war? And President Trump just did that, didn't he? He stopped the war between Israel and Iran. But you idiots are going to go to Washington and show how anti-American you are. We love it. I hope every network televises it. Show these blue-haired, dinosaurs from the 60s and what idiots they are with their Marxist flags and all that. Oh, it's sponsored by Code Pink and, all these other groups that we're so aware of. Great. I love it. Keep it going. We'll talk more about that when we cover the New York race. So Trump, stops Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, ends the war, in between Israel and Iran, and negotiates a ceasefire. And well, what else are you going to do this week? Oh, why don't we just go to NATO and get NATO, every country in NATO, to boost their defense spending to 5% of their GDP. When Trump came in the first time, they weren't even paying the 2% they were required to pay. Like only 3 nations were paying the 2%. He said, no, everybody's got to pay the 2%. And then this year, with the Russian war on Ukraine, the reason the U.S. has had to do so much is because NATO isn't real. Because they don't fund it. They're not serious about their own defense. And Trump said, you got to raise your commitment to 5% of GDP. You know what? They did it. They did it. No one thought they would or could, and they did it. NATO allies agreed to boost defense spending to 5% of GDP, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said after a vote of the 32 member countries on Wednesday at the summit in The Hague. As part of the agreement, allies committed to investing at least 3.5% of GDP on core defense requirements, up from the current 2%. Rutte said at a press conference following a 2-day meeting. The NATO Secretary General credited United States President Donald J. Trump for the result, saying the spending increase wouldn't have happened without him. Donald Trump is speaking sense. They laughed at him when he told Merkel from Germany when his first term that you can't be buying this, you can't be using the Nord Stream pipeline to get your energy from Russia if there's going to be a war. They laughed at him, and he was right. And now they ain't laughing at him anymore. They're listening to him. They're following his lead. Trump has repeatedly criticized European NATO members and Canada for not spending enough on defense, suggesting the U.S. might not honor the alliance's mutual defense commitments if they don't step up. So again, carrot, stick, carrot, stick. You don't want to defend yourself? Why should we? Okay? People are like, oh, he's trying to destroy NATO. He's trying to save NATO. He's trying to save it from itself. And he did. All allies are united in the understanding that we need to step up to stay safe, Rutte said. European allies and Canada will do more of the heavy lifting, equalizing their spending and taking greater responsibility for our shared security. What a concept. What a concept. Okay? Rutte said Trump has been clear that the United States is committed to NATO and affirmed it again today in no uncertain terms, because if they do what they're going to do, we'll do what we're supposed to do. Guess what, folks? If we can get NATO to finally pay their fair share, we can save $300 million. Excuse me, $300 billion. $300 billion. That's leadership. That's leadership. And oh yeah, by the way, just, let's see, we stop a nuclear Iran. We stop the war with Israel and Iran. We got NATO to step up and defend itself. Friday, let's just do a peace treaty between Rowanda and the Congo that nobody has been able to get done for 30 years. Trump helped these African countries sign a peace deal. Here's what we know. A deal signed in Washington on Friday has been touted as a major step towards peace in Congo following decades of conflicts that have killed millions, including thousands this year. And Trump kind of alluded to it, but didn't want to say it, with machetes, the most horrific massacres that nobody would step into. Obama wouldn't do it. Biden didn't do it. Europe wouldn't do it. You know why? Because they're racist. Because these were black people killing each other. Oh, but Donald Trump's a racist. Except he cared enough to send an envoy who negotiated a truce that the Rwandan president said, everybody's been trying to do this, no one could do it. You did. The U.S. mediated agreement is between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, which has been battered by fighting with more than 100 armed groups. The most potent is backed by neighboring Rwanda, and it is not clear if it will abide by the deal, as the groups weren't part of the negotiations. But basically, they're going to give it a shot. They signed something. Their intent is not to fight. And oh, by the way, America first. President Donald Trump says the deal gives the United States a lot of mineral rights from Congo. His administration's push to gain access to minerals key to such much of the world's technology, and is seeking to counter China Belt and Road Initiative, a key player in the region where the U.S. presence and influence has eroded. 4D chess, baby. I'm not just doing peace with Rwanda and Congo. China's the enemy. We're going to take from them. We're going to help defeat the communists. Boy, you got to be proud, folks. You just got to be so proud. You share these stories. Don't forget the Rwanda story. Don't forget the NATO story. My goodness, we are so in this insane news system where, oh my goodness, we almost had World War III, to quote Bannon and Tucker Carlson and stuff, a week ago, and people have moved on. Oh, yeah, that was last Saturday. No, that was huge. That was something between Israel and Iran that has been going on since 1979. Don't forget, share the videos, share our website stories. Okay? There's on every one of our web pages, there's a thing that is a little icon that comes up that is a share thing where it can say, email this link, text it, or post it on any social media you want. And it'll copy the link of the story you're on our webpage, and your email will open up with the link in it, and you can just write a note to someone and say, oh, did you see the video of Hegseth and General Raisin Kane about the attack on Iran? You got to watch it. Did you see Marco Rubio's video? Hey, did you see Lindsey Graham's video? That's our job, to educate our fellow citizens. We, the People Convention, gives you the tools to do that as easy as we possibly can. So now you got to do that. That's your job. That's what your responsibility as an American is. Okay? We're not spectators. We're participants in the defense of our nation and our Constitution. So, speaking of that, ladies and gentlemen, wow. Friday, the Supreme Court, many of you know the Supreme Court hears cases all year, and then in June, though they'll do some at other times, but in June, they announce all their decisions. They announced 6 decisions yesterday. We won 5 of the 6, and the 6th one, they deferred it back to the court, so we didn't lose that one. I'm just going to go through these. I will link to articles so that you can read it in more depth and share it. I'll hit the highlights because it's unbelievable. But it starts with the mother of all decisions that we needed really badly, and Jonathan Turley predicted earlier this week this would happen. Supreme Court ends abuse of injunctions, no more judicial supremacy. What does this mean? This means that the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 on Friday in the controversial birthright citizen case that lower courts cannot simply issue nationwide injunctions, and that doing so is an abuse of their judicial power. Game, set, match on the lawfare. And it gets better. The decision in Trump versus Casa vindicated the Department of Justice strategy. Pam Bondi and her lawyers, outstanding, kudos to them, of arguing against the idea of nationwide injunctions rather than addressing the underlying substantive issue in the case, namely dispute over whether the 14th Amendment to the Constitution guarantees citizenship upon birth on U.S. soil. Conservatives argue that birthright citizenship is abused by illegal migrants to make their children into U.S. citizens who can later sponsor the legal immigration of the rest of their families. They also argue that no other nation has birthright citizenship and that the 14th Amendment did not intend to create it. However, even though this case was about courts saying Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship is illegal. That wasn't what the DOJ argued. They argued that those courts don't have the right to issue a national injunction and stop Trump. And the Supreme Court agreed. Given a number of contrary rulings in lower courts, which slap nationwide injunctions on President Trump's executive orders on the subject, the DOJ kept the focus of its challenge to the narrow issue of nationwide injunctions. Democrats, and to a lesser extent Republicans, have sued in friendly jurisdictions in recent years as a way of stopping administrative policies that they do not have the legislative votes to overturn. So that is judicial radicalism, judicial interference with the executive branch. And so Amy Comey Bryant, of all people who we've been really disturbed with in some of her decisions, I don't know what got into her, but folks, listen to this. Listen to what she wrote in the majority decision in this case. It was an unbelievable smackdown of DEI Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Jackson, okay? The Supreme Court Friday ruling narrowed the scope of judicial injunctions, also including a scathing rebuke of Associate Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, asserting she sought an imperial judiciary and that her views run afoul of more than 200 years of precedent. This is what Amy Comey Bryant wrote. We will not dwell on Justice Jackson's argument, which is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent, not to mention the Constitution itself. We observe only this. Justice Jackson decries an imperial executive while embracing an imperial judiciary, wrote Associate Justice Amy Coney Barrett. I think I said Bryant, didn't it? It's Barrett. Amy Coney Barrett. Justice Jackson would do well to heed her own admonition. Everyone from the president on down is bound by the law. That goes for judges too, she added. Justice Jackson, Barrett further criticized Jackson for ignoring relevant statutes because they contained boring legalese. The justice found that Congress had not given lower court judges the authority to impose nationwide injunctions and that they were unnecessary for the courts to provide relief of plaintiff parties. While the ruling was a clear win for the Trump administration, Barrett's choice words for Jackson appeared to signal a growing frustration between conservative justice and their new colleagues who are just radical leftists who have no understanding of the law whatsoever. If we can ever get 60 senators in the House, U.S. Senate, we need to impeach Brown. She should have never been on the court. She's an embarrassment. She's an embarrassment. I mean that. And no, I'm not a racist. And she's not an embarrassment because she's black. She's an embarrassment because she doesn't know what the hell she's doing. She's an idiot. She shouldn't be on the Supreme Court. Thank goodness that Trump was able to appoint enough judges to discount the insanity of the radical left judges and protect our nation from their insanity. That's why, Obama and Biden and all those guys want to stack the Supreme Court and all that, because they can't win. They're anti-constitutionalists. And so they just ignore the Constitution until we slap them down. And baby, we slapped them down in that case, and let's just keep going on. Earlier in the week, which kind of set the stage for that ruling, SCOTUS ruled 6-3 that Trump can deport illegals to third countries. Okay? The Supreme Court issued a big win for Donald Trump administration, ruling pauses on as orders from a lower court judge that required the administration to give illegal immigrants a warning before sending them to other countries with which they are now prioritized. The program called Third Country Removal was shot down by a federal judge in May. U.S. Judge Brian Murphy blocked the administration's attempt to deport a group of immigrants to South Sudan. Okay? Shocker, he was a Biden appointee. So the Supreme Court ruled 6-3. Again, the 3 Dems voted against it, that Trump can deport people to third countries. And then that is what set up this idea that you can't put in a national injunction to stop the executive branch for doing what the Constitution legally gives them the right to do. And then it just kept coming on Friday. SCOTUS rules in favor of parents seeking to opt children out of reading LGBTQ-themed books. This was huge, and this is just common sense. And as Trump said, when he ran, he said, I will restore parents' rights. I will protect your rights to decide what your children are taught and what they learn. And remember, the teachers union said, you don't decide that. We're the teachers union. We decide what your kids learn. Yeah? No. Didn't happen, kids. You lose. You lose. The U.S. Supreme Court in a 6-3 decision ruled in favor of parents seeking to opt their children out of public school instruction that conflicts with sincerely held religious beliefs. The case, brought by a group of Christian, Muslim, and Jewish parents from Montgomery County, Maryland, sought a guaranteed exemption from the classroom reading of storybooks with LGBTQ themes, including same-sex marriage and exploration of gender identity. Justice Sam Alito, writing for the court, said the decision that refusing to allow parents to opt out their kids from instruction that poses a very real threat of undermining their religious beliefs and practices violates the First Amendment protections for religious exercise. The Montgomery County Board of Elections introduction of the LGBTQ inclusive storybooks, along with its decision to withhold opt-outs, and they were saying, you can't say my kid's not going to this class where you're going to teach this, placed an unconstitutional burden on the parents' rights to the free exercise of their religion. The court found that the parents are also likely to succeed in their lawsuit over free exercise claims and have shown they are entitled to a preliminary injunction while their lawsuit proceeds. So, bang, you get to decide. The parents allege the use of the books in an elementary school curriculum without an opportunity to be excused amounts to government-led indoctrination about sensitive matters of sexuality. The school board insisted the books merely expose kids to diverse viewpoints and ideas. No, it wasn't. It was the communist-sponsored, go to WeThePeopleConvention.org, search on China billionaire funds trans movement in the U.S. China funded the trans movement to destroy American families, schools, and communities. Look it up. That's a fact. And what they did, what the commies in the Biden administration did, was force it into schools to destroy your family, because that's the goal, to destroy the United States. That's why we are fighting so hard to preserve it. The Supreme Court just said, you can't do it. Don't let them do it in your school. If anything like that's going on, you now have a case to sue and win from the Supreme Court. Keeps going, keeps going. Key takeaway from Supreme Court decision on Planned Parenthood funding. A case known as Medina versus Planned Parenthood focused on South Carolina's attempt to prevent Medicaid dollars from flowing to Planned Parenthood. The states have more leeway to defund Planned Parenthood, now the nation's largest abortion provider, after a major decision from the Supreme Court. Planned Parenthood, sued, saying that South Carolina, because remember, Medicaid, is partly from the federal government, but the states actually manage it. And South Carolina said, no Medicaid money can go to Planned Parenthood. That's not health care, that's abortion. And they sued, okay? Well, now, because of this decision, every red state is going to do this. And Planned Parenthood knows. They are on the ropes, folks. Planned Parenthood said after the decision that this is literally terminal to their organization. And Donald Trump has said he's going to get rid of these people because they don't provide health care. That's a lie. They abort babies for a living, and mostly black children, mostly blacks. This is just eugenics under a different name. The Supreme Court just said, we the people can say, we're ending this. We're ending this. Awesome. And then one final ruling, Supreme Court upholds Texas age verification porn law. And for many of you watching this podcast, this is controversial. You know this is really important to me because I've been fighting for age verification for social media because it's literally killing our children. It's destroying their minds, their mental health. It's a fact. Look it up at WeThePeopleConvention.org. Hit the little search icon and look up Jonathan Haidt, Haidt. Okay. And you'll see his video. You'll see all the laws they're proposing. And the fight is, well, why? If you verify on social media that you're over age 16, then I'm losing my First Amendment rights. I disagree. I bring up the case of, you can't buy a gun. You can't buy drugs. You can't buy cigarettes. You can't buy alcohol if you're a child. You got to show your driver's license. So why shouldn't you have to do that online? This ruling cracks the line of defense. The Supreme Court on Friday upheld a Texas law that requires pornography websites to verify age of users before they can access explicit material. The 6-3 ruling, Free Speech Coalition, Inc. versus Paxton, that states may require age verification laws to access sexually explicit materials in order to prevent children from accessing those materials. Of course, the 3 Democrats, basically, fought it. Justice Clarence Thomas wrote the deciding opinion. The Texas law at the center of the case requires pornography sites to verify the age of users before providing access and applies to any website whose content is 1/3 or more harmful to minors. Petitioners, Speech Coalition, Inc., representatives of the pornography industry, sued Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton to prevent enforcement of the law because it burdens adult visitors of the sites who have First Amendment rights to access the materials the website pushes. You have a First Amendment right to access it. That doesn't mean you have a right to not have to prove your age, just like you have a right to access alcohol or cigarettes or guns. You have that right. The Second Amendment gives you the right to buy a gun. But that doesn't mean we can't protect minors from having guns. And so you got to show your driver's license. Don't understand what's so controversial here. Don't get it. Some of you will disagree. Write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org and state your case. This is big. Even though it's not about children social media verification, the fact that this cleared the courts is going to help us get that done. And ladies and gentlemen, that will be a great day when we protect our children from using social media, TikTok and Instagram and even Facebook, though they don't do that much, because the evidence is totally clear. It is making our children into mentally ill zombies. That's why they can't do a job at work. It undermines their self-confidence, their ability to think for themselves. The evidence is crystal clear. Go look it up. We've got to protect our children, and you're having to identify yourself to access social media or a porn site is not an infringement on your First Amendment rights. It's common sense. So I was really excited about this. Okay? Then there's other big news, that's going on. This weekend, the Senate is going to work through the big, beautiful bill. And I posted what I thought was a really good story, and I texted it out to you and I emailed it to you. So go to our website, wethepeopleconvention.org, and read the stories about what the Senate is going to do. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty impressive of how this is going to happen. Now, President Trump sent them a warning. No one goes on vacation until it's done, is what Trump said on Truth Social. Now that we have made peace abroad, we must finish the job here at home by passing the great, big, beautiful bill and getting the bill to my desk ASAP. It will be a historic present for the great people of the United States of America as we begin the celebration of our country's 250th birthday anniversary, which is a year, from now. We are finally entering our golden age, which will bring unprecedented safety, security, and prosperity for all of our citizens. To my friends in the Senate, lock yourselves in the room if you must. Don't go home and get the deal done this week. Work with the House so they can pick it up and pass it immediately. No one goes on vacation until it's done. You and I have been saying that for how long? All right? Stay the hell on your job and get this done. Everyone, most importantly, the American people, will be much better off thanks to your work together. Make America great again. That's happening this weekend. They know they got to do this. And there's going to be good, bad, and ugly in this bill. But there's going to be a lot of good. All right? So we're not going to get everything we want, and the Thomas Masseys of the world are going to, bitch and moan. But this is going to be preventing a 68% tax increase. It's going to give us the money to finish the wall, and to deport 12 million illegals. It's going to do amazing things for us. I'm going to talk about some surprising things later. But one thing that came out, and I put this story on our website because it shocked me, is proposed Senate land sale, another giveaway to big tech. I found this, again, I deserve some credit because some of the sources I get are just nuts. This is from the Beef News newsletter, beefnews.org. This is from the cattle industry. But basically, the Senate's new reconciliation bill isn't just about selling public land, it's about stripping local communities of control. A little-known provision bans states and counties from regulating AI systems for a full decade after opening the door to opaque development far beyond housing. From data centers to deed-restricted zones, this bill rewrites who gets a say in the future of American land. Now, there's lots of controversy about this. I urge you to go read this story. It's really interesting because it looks like another big tech giveaway. But you decide for yourself. I don't know if it's going to make it through. I've said to you, we need to sell some of our land to cut the deficit, right? I made that case that we're not poor. We just crossed the $37 billion threshold, by the way. We now have $37 trillion in debt officially right now, and we got to stop it. And we've advocated that we have $200 trillion in assets, so we're not broke. But I don't know if this will get through the Senate, but that story is really interesting. Okay, I'm going to wrap up the first half of the show with what I think is a really important commentary on the FBI and Dan Bongino and Kash Patel. I'm going to start with this short video. Listen to this.
If you harm our children, you will be given no sanctuary. There is no place we will not come to hunt you down. There is no place we will not look for you. And there is no cage we will not put you in should you do harm to our children. The prioritization of this administration and General Bondi has made it abundantly clear to child predators, you will be hunted down and you will be prosecuted. And that is a refreshing thing to hear for the men and women who do this work tirelessly. And it's also an acknowledgement of the safety that we look forward to bringing America.
So this was an announcement that FBI Director Kash Patel and Attorney General Pam Bondi announced the arrest of 205 individuals and rescue of 115 children in Operation Restore Justice. The operation involved 55 FBI field offices targeting diverse offenders. And then I will put this in our podcast page, and if you're not following me on X, please do, because I share a lot of this stuff with you on X, Tom Z WTPC. X.com, Tom Z WTPC. Sign up, go search on that, Tom Z WTPC, and follow us because I'm posting important things. But I'm going to read for you an update that Dan Bongino posted that was terrific because a lot of people have been bitching on the conservative side, on the MAGA side. Oh, when's the arrest come in? What is Bondi and Patel and Bongino doing over there? They're doing a lot. Want the proof? We always bring the receipts. Here we go. Update. As the director and I close out our first few months in our roles, I want to provide another update on our efforts to both reform the FBI and hunt down bad actors. Some of these action items you may have already read about, some you may have not. 1, we are mission focused on crushing violent crime and making your neighborhood noticeably safer. Here are some of the early results. We have arrested 14,000 violent criminals. This represents a 62% increase from the same period last year. 62% increase. Many of these violent criminals are cartel leaders and child predators, and they'll be looking at long prison terms. We also located and apprehended 3 of the FBI's top 10 most wanted, and we are closely tracking the others. As a result, the murder rate is currently tracking to be the lowest on record nationwide. This is not a victory lap. We are doubling down hard. Next, we arrested over 825 violent child predators and 140 human traffickers as we aggressively pursue the filth that prey on our children. If you're preying on our children, we are coming from you. It's only a matter of time. That's Dan Bongino at his best. We warned those violent acts We warned those violently acting out in recent riots that we would restore order and pursue you if you chose violence. Over 700 arrests have been made in coordination with our federal and state partners. Many of those arrests are members of organized groups, and we are pouring through data in pursuit of more bad actors. We are not done. That wasn't done in 2020, was it? That wasn't done by Christopher Wray. That wasn't done, by the lefties who wanted the riots. We're stopping the riots. In conjunction with our federal partners, we apprehended, imprisoned, and deported over 18,000 illegal aliens. Many of these illegal aliens have violent criminal histories. As a result, last month, 0 illegals were admitted into our country. Well, next item. We have made numerous personnel and structural changes to the leadership of the FBI to ensure the mistakes of the past are not repeated. Those changes continue, and as a reminder, things are happening that we cannot publicly discuss. It does not mean they are not happening. Remember that. I will send a separate, more detailed post shortly about our arrests of multiple foreign intelligence and targets engaged in illegal activities. These cases continue as we move quickly to round up these threats to our homeland. We are hyper-vigilant in protecting our homeland given the current heightened global threat environment while we deal with our own criminals and other critical responsibilities. There's more work to be done. Stay tuned on additional disclosures and updates on public corruption cases. And again, for those who've been patient with us, thank you. We are doing the job. They are doing the job. We owe a debt of gratitude to the whole Trump team, not just President Trump, but RFK Jr. and Elon Musk when he was there, Bongino, Bondi, Bassnet, Lutnick, just keep on going. Treasury, energy, labor, they're killing it. They're killing it. Wow, what a week to be American. You should be so proud, and you should spread the news far and wide, and I hope you will. Okay? So I hope you've enjoyed the first half of the podcast. We'll be back with the second half for these messages, but you've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and I'll be back with you after these messages.
The We the People Convention News and Opinion radio program is paid for by donors like you. You can donate to the We the People Convention and support our cause by going to wethepeopleconvention.org or by sending your check in any amount to We the People Convention, P.O. Box 6211, Akron, Ohio 44312. When you're playing a video, including our podcast, you'll see this little cloud button. And if you click it, it'll actually download the video to your hard disk. And this works on our podcast page as well. If you're playing our podcast, and it's going to be loud, so I won't play it for much, but there's our podcast playing, and you can see this little, download button. Okay. The other thing you got to notice on our podcast page is that there's a link here where you can send me a message about this podcast. Hey, it was great. Hey, I didn't like it. Something was wrong, or here's a correction, that kind of thing. You can use that link. And then these are the stories that I covered in this particular podcast. And you'll see there's links that go to the stories, to the articles that I used in reporting on that. So you can click on that. You'll also see that you can sign up for our emails and text messages, but you can also watch our podcast on Roku TV and on Amazon Fire TV. And these are the instructions for doing that. So this is all on our podcast page, right on the front page where the yellow button was. So if you click there, this is our podcast page. These are the instructions for watching on Roku TV or Amazon Fire. And I watch our podcast on TV. It just feels more comfortable. So you can do that. We're also on Rumble. If you go to Rumble, you should join Rumble. It's Tom Z at WTPC. You'll see our podcast there. So you can get us a lot of different ways, including on Apple iTunes. And then this is an audio version of our podcast. If you click here, it'll just play the audio of the podcast. It will not, show you the video. So people can, listen to that while they're jogging or, working out, working in the yard, or just relaxing and just want to listen to the audio and not watch the video. And again, this is available on phone, on your iPad, on your laptop, on your computer, any way you want. And you can share this, whatever you see, if you're on a page that you really like, and you see an article that you think, geez, I've got to share this article, with someone in my family. You can send them an email by clicking on the little envelope. You can post it on Parler or MeWe. If you click on this, you get all kinds of options, where you can put it on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, which we don't support, but you can do whatever you want. So we ask that you share what you see on our We the People Convention site, and that you get more people to look at it, because that's the whole idea here, to help educate people, inform them. And then, as I said before, Link, we're not just about talk, we're about action. And in my podcast every week, which is published every Saturday, so if the new podcast usually comes out every Saturday, and in that podcast, I will ask you to do certain things that will help protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So that's the We the People Convention website. Come back often, use it to be informed, and share it with others. Thanks a lot.
All right, we're back. Excuse me, I'm eating an orange, kind of a little late coming back from the break. I hope you enjoyed the first half of the podcast. I hope you share all of that stuff, because it's really important. And again, everybody's not getting the same information, right? So you're hearing, oh, they didn't really blow up the nuclear reactors. No, they moved the stuff out of there before we could get to it. And there's the peace deal is not real. It's going to be World War III. You got to refute all that, and you can. But most of all, you got to share the Supreme Court stories. And so in that video, it talks about our website. It doesn't tell you about our chapters player. We have this really cool thing at our WeThePeopleConvention.org on the podcast page that it takes till Sunday for them to do the AI to create it. But it breaks the podcast down into every story. And then there's a link, so you can jump right to the Supreme Court decision on the Texas, upholding the, have to show your ID to visit a porn site. You can click on the link, and it goes right to there in the podcast, and you can watch that. But then there's a link to create a link to that section of the video that you can email and text message to people and put on social media. So our chapters player really allows you to go to the stories you want, but also to share them very easily. And by the way, on Rumble and on YouTube, they do the same thing. If you go to YouTube and you look at our podcast at We the People Convention is our location on YouTube, you'll see that it's got the time codes, and you can just say, oh, I heard about that. What's that? Click, and it'll take you right to the video. Same thing on Rumble, okay? So use those tools to share this very important information, because we're just living in historic times. And the more you educate our fellow citizens, the better governance we'll get. The better, our country will be. The better your life will be. And the more we will protect and defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. Okay? So, just keep it up. Keep fighting, because that's what we have to do. All right, so we're going to, get into the second half of the show. Little, more chunky, different things moving around a bit, but all very important. And the one thing that everyone's going historical about this week was the mayor's race in New York City, the Democratic primary for the mayor's race. In shock to Democratic politics, Zoran Mamdani wins the New York primary for mayor. Mamdani said his city would be one governed as a model for the Democrat Party, which would prioritize the needs of the working class and fight Trump. This is hilarious. The left is losing their mind. Every quote unquote Democrat knows this is going to destroy the Democratic Party. And that's exactly what we want. That's what we want. Zoran Mamdani, a 33-year-old Democrat socialist. Now, remember, Hillary Clinton was a Democratic socialist, state assembly member, upset mainstream Democrat policies by defying expectations and taking a commanding lead in the June 24th New York City mayoral primary, defeating Andrew Cuomo, and commie Bernie Sanders and commie OAC. They endorse this clown, and he's a clown. He wants, The guy's never had a job. His parents are professors at Columbia. Okay, he's an Islamist, anti-Israel hater, and he's a commie. It's the red-green axis. Okay, that's what this is, and we love it. You're saying, Tom, what do you mean? Why would we want the largest city in the United States to be taken over by communists? Because it will help destroy them. It will help destroy them. So I put this story up. It was an op-ed that came up at townhall.com. Help New York City kill itself. And I post this article for you to read, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's just terrific. If you haven't been to New York City before, you missed it. It's not destroyed. It's just a mess and not worth visiting. You still could. It's a great place to take the family if you love the smell of fresh urine on hot concrete coupled with potent marijuana, because you smell that combination pretty much everywhere in New York City. The city is dying, and we should let it. Progressives are all in favor of assisted suicide. We should join them in the case of New York City and help kill New York City. Only a complete embrace of socialist, fascist, communist policies, and there isn't a dime's worth of difference between the three, that will wean those people off their addiction to seeking government to solve their problems and improve their lives. Let it die and let them choke on whatever damage and harm to people it does along the way. Some people can learn from history, like us. Others are too dumb to heed those lessons and avoid the pitfalls of the past. New York falls into the latter, so let them swallow the whole bottle of their own medicine. I can't bring myself to care, and neither can I. Republicans in Washington should do everything to make sure that all the socialist policies New York currently has and the ones that are waiting to be imposed have the maximum impact on the people who voted for these worthless politicians. Let's see here. The one thing you have to remember about these people is that they are evil. The communists are evil. Not stupid. It's not like they believe they can make socialism, communism, fascism work. It's that they don't care because they want the policies implemented no matter how much harm they do. They just say free groceries, free rides on the buses, free housing, free this, to get the willful idiots to buy into it, to vote for them. But they never intend to see it work. It doesn't work. That's what happens. It says equality to everyone means suffering for everyone except them. That's what the Soviet Union taught us. Everybody was equally poor. They all lived in a cement block piece of crap building and stood in line to get bread. That's why the Soviet Union broke up, and that's why Russia isn't communist anymore. But people don't tell you that much. They don't tell you that. Even the Russians gave up on communism. If you notice, totalitarians tend to be fat as their people starve. Mao, Stalin, Castro, Hitler all got fat while in power, and their people went hungry. The policies progressives seek to impose are policies they themselves are largely exempt from. And the article is hilarious. It goes on to just say, let it happen. Let it happen in Los Angeles. Let it happen in Chicago. But you know what? We can't subsidize it. We need to do what Trump is doing. Oh, those illegals you want in New York? Yeah, they don't get Social Security. They don't get food stamps. They don't get Medicare. They don't get our money. They get your money. They get the money from the dumbass Democrats, the rich people, and that's who voted for this guy. It was really interesting. The people he said he was going to help, the poor, did not vote for him. Rich white women voted for this guy. Now, I don't know if he's going to win in November because there's going to be the current mayor, Adams, is going to run, and Cuomo is talking about running again, which is weird that they can do that. He was just in the Democratic primary, but that would take support from the Marxists and give Adams I don't know. All I know is New York is a perfect example of the failure of the Democrat Party and how they're doomed. Mark my words, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, I think next year, 2026, when we get the big, beautiful bill, when we see all the tariffs creating jobs and wage increases, when we see there's inflation is down, standards of living are up, there's peace in the world, I'm just telling you, 2026 is going to be 2010. What happened in 2010? 2010 is when the Tea Party took control of the House after Barack Obama was coronated in 2008, when they thought they were going to be a supermajority in the House and Senate for his whole 8 years. The Tea Party rose up and won 62 House seats, the most since 1928, and took back the House. Okay? I think in 2026, because of the dual things of Republicans being forced to follow the Trump agenda, even when they don't want to, and the Democrats being forced to destroy themselves on the communist, mantle of Bernie Sanders and OAC, that combination is going to implode the whole left. And I think we're going to move towards a one party, and what I would want is a no party system, as our founders did not want political parties. We've got to stop this. You can't have quote unquote political parties who are against America. So I think the commies are going to take over what's left of the Democrat Party, and the real Democrats, the old-time Democrats who've been bullied and thrown out by the commies, will start a new party, probably with the rhinos, okay? But that'll take 12, 16, 18 years. This is historic. What you did, what I did, is historic. The election in New York demonstrates it. What Trump's doing demonstrates it. What the Supreme Court just did demonstrates it. This is a great time to be alive. And you've got to share that story about help New York kill itself with everyone so they understand. They understand. Now, this was a surprise. Shocker. Liberal Wisconsin Supreme Court declines to withdraw congressional maps. Democrats denied pre-26 power grab. We were all told a couple months ago, oh my gosh, if we don't win the Supreme Court race in Wisconsin, we're done. They're going to redraw the maps and take 2 House seats, and we can't afford that. Oh my. And Elon Musk put all kinds of money into the race and all that. Guess what happened? The Supreme Court wouldn't do it. Wisconsin liberally controlled Supreme Court locked in a 4-3 ideological split, refused to intervene in Democrat efforts to redraw the state's GOP-dominated congressional maps. The Elias Law Group and Campaign Legal Center filed dual petitions in May urging the court to invalidate the 6-2 Republican-leading congressional configuration, claiming it violates the state's constitutional promise of equal representation. Then that Susan Crawford person won the Supreme Court race and thought that would tip it over, and she was a former attorney for Planned Parenthood, don't you know? It took the Wisconsin Democrats little over 1 month to call on the Supreme Court to do it, and then the Supreme Court on June 25th rejected a request to reconsider the state's congressional maps ahead of next year's midterm elections, all but ensuring the current maps will remain in place for 2026. How do you like them apples? Think things aren't going in our direction? Yep, that's why we fight, because you never know when you're going to win. Yeah, you can lose. We lose. We win a lot more than we lose because we always fight, okay? We always fight. This is another big deal. Trump terminates Biden-era program promoting DEI to kids. The Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and the Department of Homeland Security have ended a multi-million-dollar program initially intended to help students prevent terror and violence in their communities. Now that's really bright. So we're going to ask kindergarten kids or elementary school kids to help us fight terrorism, don't you know? Yeah, that was a bright idea. The program known as Invent to Prevent was purposed for the former Biden regime to focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and LGBTQ ideology in schools, often bipartisans. Tricia McCullough, DHS Assistant Secretary, said this program was not only wasteful, it was also using money to support an openly partisan and political organization. Politicized NGOs like Eradicate Hate have been siphoning away taxpayer dollars for far too long, and we are ending the grift. The DHS estimates that cutting the program will save more than $1.5 million. The Invent to Prevent website now displays a banner indicating the content is archived and may not reflect current policies. The war that Trump is waging across the board to destroy the anti-white diversity, equity, inclusion, Marxist bullcrap is working because they're not just talking, they're doing. And so, the education secretary is going to sue California because they found all their education systems are in violation of the current policy against DEI. That's going to be great. And I'm telling you what, cue it up. This is next. Exclusive. Teachers' unions across America have radical quotas for leadership roles. Tell me it ain't so. Tell me it ain't so. The nation's largest teachers' unions imposed racial quotas for its board and leadership, designating a portion of its roles for those who qualify as an ethnic minority. A report from Defending Education, exclusively obtained from the Daily Wire, reveals. The National Education Association, which calls itself the nation's largest professional employee organization, stipulates in its constitution that various boards and committees are required to have a specific proportion of ethnic minority members, and that elections can be held for certain positions with a specific intent to elect a member of an ethnic minority group. That is flat out racism. That is flat out illegal. You can expect Harmeet Dillon to be visiting upon them subpoenas and lawsuits. Ethnic minorities shall, this is what it says, ethnic minorities shall comprise at least 20% of the board, the NEA Constitution reads, adding that Representative Assembly shall elect additional directors as appropriate to assure such ethnic minority representation. Flat out racism. The NEA has become a race-obsessed organization, and these racial quotas written in their constitution and bylaws provide further evidence of how far they've fallen. It has become an ideological project for them, and it's no surprise that education outcomes continue to decline as the largest teacher union in the country became more and more extreme and unqualified, because they're not picking people to serve in their positions because they're really the best you can find. They're just filling quotas. And we know that doesn't work. We know that only merit works. And that's why President Trump's trying to start putting merit first, and you and I should as well, in our everything we do, in our business, in our church, in our community. Merit is what made America. This is anti-merit. But it's not just the NEA. This is what's beautiful. The California Teachers Association, the Massachusetts Teachers Association, the Michigan Teachers Association. All in all, it's like 30 of the teachers associations in the states all are violating the law with their racist policies. We're going to crush the freaking unions finally, who take our tax dollars. How do the unions get their money? They have union dues at the schools that we pay property taxes for, and they extort those from the teachers, literally. Even though we have a law now that says you can opt out as a teacher from being part of the union, follow that. Okay, how they're fighting that, and they're still charging teachers dues when they're not allowed to. They extort taxpayer money to do what? To implement a Marxist, leftist, racist agenda. We must do what? I said to you guys for years, you're sick of me saying this, you guys have listened all the time. When people said to me, Tom, how can we possibly defeat the left? They own sports, entertainment, the institutions, education, medicine, the government. They own it all. How can we defeat them? And I would tell you over and over again, simple. They do it with our money. They have nothing. They have no base of support. It's all extorted. The people that support them are forced to support them. It's not voluntary. And they do it with our money. And if we cut off their money, they will cease to exist. Donald Trump is cutting off their money. U.S. aid was billions of dollars to fund everything from Antifa and Black Lives Matter to the energy tyranny to destroy capitalism by restricting our natural resources, to all of it. He's doing exactly what needs to be done. And we're going to go after the teachers' unions and destroy them because they're evil. They don't help our children. Just look at the graph of our performance as students. It's as clear as can be. They must be gone. This was big news. This is a story that's going to come up. ACTBlue officials are being subpoenaed amid fraud investigation. Let's see. House Republicans have issued subpoenas to two current and former ACTBlue officials in connection with alleged widespread fraud on the Democratic Party's largest online fundraising platform. Subpoenas were sent to an unnamed current ACTBlue senior workflow specialist and former Vice President of Customer Service, Ashla Tommy. The letter signed by House Committee Chairman James Comer, Jim Jordan, and Brian Steele follow a Justice Department investigation initiated under an executive order signed by President Donald Trump. The order mandated a DOJ report on the allegations within 180 days. It's real simple. ACTBlue, starting with Barack Obama, who got millions of dollars for his campaign from foreign countries, which is totally illegal because ACTBlue didn't have your zip code. And then they got millions of dollars for Joe Biden and other Democrats because they weren't asking for the CCV number. And they're just a fraudulent organization. The Democratic Party's largest fundraising wing is going to be inactive in 2026. How do you think that's going to do for their House and Senate races? How do you think that's going to work out? Yeah, stay tuned. More to come. And as long as we're subpoenaing people, let's go. Jill Biden's quote-unquote work husband subpoenaed in GOP probe of cognitive cover-up. So this is all about the auto pen, and Joe Biden was the vegetable. Anthony Bernal, a longtime senior aide to Joe Biden, has been subpoenaed by House Republicans investigating whether top White House officials concealed signs of Biden's cognitive decline during his time in office. Bernal, known for his close working relationship with the former First Lady Jill Biden, reportedly referred to by some as her work husband, declined to participate in a transcribed interview requested by the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. His refusal prompted Committee Chairman James Comer to issue a subpoena compelling Bernal to appear for a deposition on July 16th. Okay? Where there's smoke, there's fire, folks. A lot of these things that Biden, quote unquote, signed, he didn't sign, and they're going to fight like hell to make them illegal, to make them to say, no, those just don't count. Those just don't count. So that was great news. This is a real interesting piece because it gave me a chance to point something out. Top LGBT group warns Dems to stop talking about transgender sports issues. Evan Lowe, CEO of LGBTQ plus Victory Fund, is pushing Democrats to focus on less on cultural identity battles and more on the issue voters care about day to day, what he calls kitchen table issues. Oh, what a concept. This guy must be a really brilliant political consultant to steer clear of hot button topics like transgender participation in sports, which he says are not priorities for most Americans. Now, the LGBTQ guy is telling the dumbass Democrats to stop talking about trans sports athletes. This is not a top 1, top 5, top 10, or top 30 issue, he said, of transgender sports. Lowe's comments come as the Democratic Party wrestles with how to appeal to working class voters post 2024, while President Trump continues using gender identity as a key wedge. Yet Lowe insists identity politics shouldn't be front and center, even if LGBTQ plus individuals face regular targeting by Republican messaging. We are running to serve the people, not to distract on issues that divide. He said, you're not running to serve the people. You're running to push your agenda. You're running to get power for this mentally ill group of people who say they can change their gender. That's what you're doing. According to the Victory Fund's new Out in America report, shared in advance with Politico, 1,334 openly LGBTQ plus individuals now hold office, nearly triple the number from Trump's first term. Most are Democrats, with less than 3% identifying as Republicans. Now you're probably saying, wow, 1,334 openly gay and trans individuals now hold office. What does that really mean? Oh, I used my trusty AI to go and say, well, how many offices are there for elected officials in the United States? Well, there's 500,500. And if 1,334 are held by gay and LGBTQ people, that comes out to 0.27%. Like 0.25% of all elected officials are gay or trans. And that's less than the 7% estimated to be gay or trans in the population, which I think is also BS. Okay? So the Dems, get this. So the commies got the Dems to destroy their entire political party to try to win over less than 7% of the population. Can't get any dumber than that. Can't get any dumber than that, and they deserve what they got. Okay, last week I read a story from Laura Lomer about Tucker Carlson taking money from Qatar to interview the premier of Qatar, and that his whole media organization was funded by that. I'm now thinking that's not true. Readers added, the Farah report cited here refers to payments to Lumen 8 Advisors, a group registered to work for Qatar. As their statement makes clear, neither they nor the Qatari government paid Tucker for the interview. And if you clicked on the link that I'm showing you in this X post, you would go to a story, and the story is right here, a long story by a guy called Neil Patel. He said, this is a lie. This contract and filing has nothing to do with us. Tucker and TCN have never accepted any foreign money, Qatari or otherwise. None of this is even about the interview anyway, of course. It's about you not liking Tucker, meaning Laura Lomer, and views on the war that you want. That's your right, but it would be more honest if you addressed Tucker directly on the real topic. Now, I reposted this and said I may have been wrong about Tucker taking money from Qatar. Read this, and then guess what happened? This is not available anymore. So is it false? This goes back to what I've been saying to you, is that in the age of AI and stuff, 90% of what we think we know is not true. So I don't know if Tucker, took money from Qatar or not, for sure. Okay? And I said to you last week, I'm not going to just throw Tucker out because he has a lot of interesting guests, a lot more than anybody else I know. And so, but I'm going to watch it I'm going to be more skeptical of his guests. Well, this week, I just think Tucker Carlson beclowned himself. Because we have a membership to Tucker Carlson Network, we get his daily updates, his emails. And like a spoiled 9-year-old who lost the argument in school about, who the best, team was in sports, he doubled down, tripled down on Trump shouldn't have bombed, it was wrong and endangers us. He just went nuts. And he's destroying his credibility with me because I'm not just saying that, yes, we destroyed, the nuclear plants because Trump said so. The IEA is saying so. Other experts are saying so. We're looking for truth. But Tucker is now selling an agenda. And I'm really disappointed. And I just want to warn you, you can watch his stuff. But wow, the podcasts he had this week weren't worth watching, including the one with Ted Cruz last week. My goodness. Anyway, just had to set you straight. I always tell you, I'm working for the truth. If I'm wrong, I'll admit it, okay? I just tried to admit I might be wrong, but now I'm not sure. Okay, so let's go on with the rest of the stories here and conclude the podcast. We've been talking about the Fed. We've been talking about how Jerome Powell is hurting Trump for political reasons. Here's your evidence. New home sales plunge in May as high interest rates weigh on affordability. Okay, and Trump has been saying this. U.S. sales of newly built homes dropped sharply in May, falling to their lowest since last October as high mortgage rates continue to strain affordability and sideline prospective buyers. So inflation is down, wages are up, and we're going to have the lowest gas prices this July 4th in 10 years or something, okay? And yet people can't afford to buy a house. Purchase of new single-family homes fell 13.7% from April to a seasonally adjusted rate of 623,000, the Commerce Department said on Wednesday. In May is the largest monthly decline since the summer of 2021 and came in well below economists' expectations. The steep pullback signals persistent weakness in the housing market, where elevated financing costs have eroded purchasing power despite price incentives and mortgage rate buy-downs offered by builders. The average 30-year fixed rate has hovered over nearly 7% in recent weeks, limiting what many householders can afford and pushing others out of the market altogether. And so this is where I keep telling you, and Trump keeps telling you, Jerome Powell is doing this for political reasons. Even other Fed members are saying now, all of the business shows are saying there is no reason not to lower interest rates. And Trump is saying this one guy, Jerome Powell, is costing us like $400 billion more in interest on our national debt, the new $37 trillion debt, because he won't lower interest rates a quarter of a point or half a point. It's insane. Now, I told you last week that it looks like the Fed may move the rate in July, even though he said this month that that wouldn't happen because of pressure. And Jerome Powell only has 11 months left to serve, and Trump's going to replace him and maybe force him out before that. But I want you to understand this podcast is about individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. And the Fed is hurting your individual prosperity. Our credit card rates, and I don't have a lot of credit card debt, I imagine that, and a lot of you don't as well, but a lot of people have no choice. And I mean, it's like 25%. What the heck? It's theft. And so Trump's fighting this fight, but you needed to know really how it affects your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. This is what this podcast is about. Now, this story I put out, not many people reacted because I don't think you understand how important it is, so I'm going to explain it. Redefining advertising. Federal Trade Commission put forward some new rules when they approved this big merger this week. I put it out to you, but I need to explain what it's about because this is a really, really big deal. President Donald Trump's top consumer protection and antitrust official has approved a massive $13.5 billion merger that will reshape the advertising industry, effectively putting the final nail in the coffin of the coordination against outlets based on their political viewpoints. The Federal Trade Commission announced Monday morning that it has decided not to block a merger between Omnicom and IPG, two rival firms which together make up a third of the world's big six advertising agencies. But rather than rubber stamp the deal, FTC Chairman Andrew Ferguson, appointed by Donald Trump, extracted a major concession. The firms have agreed to cease all coordination related to viewpoint discrimination. What does that mean? Refrain from any coordination in the future and submit to strict compliance mandates. Ferguson on Monday, in his official statement on the decision, said the firms have offered not only to cease coordination in any way that would steer advertising dollars away from publishers based on political viewpoints, i.e. conservative organizations like, David Rubin podcast, Ben Shapiro, The Daily Wire, Charlie Kirk, the We the People Convention, any conservative organization, we couldn't get any advertising. That's why our organization is donor-based, because we couldn't sell advertising because they were actually acting to stop that. Let's see here. But to cooperate with the FTC's investigation into past collusion and submit to regular compliance reviews. So not only does he say, you pledged, if we're going to have this merger, you are not going to decide where to advertise based on the politics of the medium, gateway, pundit, whatever, okay? But you're going to decide based on the same things what's the age demographics of the site, what are the people's, buying habits, things like that advertisers care about. The FCC appeared poised to block the merger based on evidence of past anti-competitive behavior. A congressional investigation concluded that GARM, which is this group that the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, that they used to shut down everybody. That's what they tried to do with Elon Musk. Remember when Musk bought X and they couldn't have that, couldn't have free speech, couldn't do that. So what did they do? They literally went and took away like all of X's advertisers, all of them, to try to bankrupt X. And Musk fought back, and then this investigation, now Trump's people are taking care of it. Because here's what happened. A congressional investigation concluded that GARM banded together the most powerful firms in the advertising industry to choke off the vital advertising revenue of those who disagreed with them, Ferguson said in a Monday statement, adding that GARM aimed to destroy publisher content of which they disapproved. This was the censorship state. This was what they did to us from from Barack Obama all the way through to now. This is why we had to struggle so much to build our own networks like Rumble after they crushed Remember Parler and stuff like that? They crushed Parallels. They crushed all these conservative voices to control the narrative so they could force their ideology and make it think everybody, can change their gender. Oh yeah, whites are just born racist. You can't help yourself. It's toxic masculinity. All that crap never worked. It never did work. We all knew it was wrong, but they could pretend it was real because every TV show, every ad you see, there's no ads with just white families. There's no ads with even just black families. Now, every ad has a gay person, an Oriental person. Whites are married to blacks. Blacks are married to whites. There's no regular families, except there are. It's illusion. It's propaganda. This helps stop it. Do you see how important this is? The conservative groups are going to flourish, and the CNNs and all those people are going to go out of business because they have no viewers. But they could manipulate these advertising companies to put the dollars that General Mills or Kraft or Ford Auto were spending, the billions of dollars, only to the left. Only to the left. No more. Think that's a big deal? Oh, baby, that's a big deal. This is another big deal. I love this. I sent it out right away. RFK Jr. cuts medical costs by reforming insurance company prior authorization process. You are all familiar with the garbage you got to go through to go get medical care. And it's all this paperwork, repetitive, all this time. Fill this out online, check in before you go, and then you get there and you got to answer the same questions. Stupid questions, right? A coalition of major U.S. health insurers has pledged to overhaul the often criticized prior authorization process, committing to reducing administrative delays and improving access to care for more than 250 million Americans enrolled in commercial, Medicare Advantage, and Medicaid managed care plans. Unveiled on June 23rd by the trade associations American Health Insurance Plans and Blue Cross Blue Shield Association, the initiative introduces a set of industry-wide commitments aimed at modernizing and streamlining how insurers review and approve medical treatment and services. The reforms focus on improving timeliness, enhanced transparency, and adopting advanced technologies to ease burdens on parents and providers alike. At a June 23rd news conference discussing the health industry commitments, Dr. Mehmet Oz, administrator of the Centers of Medical and Medicaid Services, said the issue of prior authorizations has turned into a major barrier to timely patient care, forcing doctors to spend hours navigating red tape instead of treating patients. Each week, on average, physicians handle about 40 of these pre-authorization issues and requests and spend about 12 hours a week on paperwork in general, often aimed at addressing the prior authorization issue. This agreement, again, what's interesting about RFK Jr., and whether it's the food dye removal, whether it's the other groups coming to the table, he's not forcing them to. He's not passing new rules. He's just reaching out to them and getting their cooperation. And he tells a story, and you can see a video on X, where he tells a story about when he finally got confirmed and he had the job of health, HHS director. He reached out and said, what is the single thing we could do that would be easy to do that would have the most impact? And one of his team members reached out to this professor at Harvard or something who's been studying the medical system for decades. And that guy said, oh, baby, get rid of this pre-authorization stuff and you will make healthcare much better. And he did it. And he did it because you and I fought and Maha joined with MAGA to elect Trump, who kept his word and appointed RFK Jr., who's now doing everything he promised. Oh my gosh, what a time to be alive. We are going to be healthier again, folks. I promise you, we are going to be healthier again. And what RFK Jr. is doing will be a big part of Trump's legacy for history, throughout history. It's awesome. Then he just goes and does this. RFK nixes U.S. funding for Vaccine Alliance until it re-earns the public trust. What is this about? Okay? This is fighting the fight against the people who lied to us, who shoved COVID down our throats and lied about it. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced on Wednesday that the United States would not donate to Gavi, a global vaccine alliance, unless and until the organization took steps to re-earn the public trust. Kennedy's criticism of the global body was rooted primarily in its handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, and he made that abundantly clear in a video he sent to Gavi Pledging Support Summit, in which he accused the organization of silencing dissent over the highly controversial COVID vaccines and pushing them despite concerns about their safety. When the science was inconvenient, Gavi ignored the science, Kennedy said, arguing that if the United States was going to continue funding the organization, they would have to do better in the future. He also accused Gavi of coordinating with the World Health Organization to recommend best processes for social media companies to silence dissenting views, to stifle free speech and legitimate questions during that period. I call on Gavi today to re-earn the public trust and justify the $8 billion that America has provided in funding since 2001. And I'll tell you how to start taking vaccine safety seriously. Consider the best science available, even when the science contradicts established paradigms, Kennedy declared. Until that happens, the United States will not give money to Gavi. He also, by the way, defunded all the Bill Gates organizations that your taxpayers have been going to hurt people. How about that? And then just a little side note, this little story came out. Japan releases bombshell COVID data. The more doses you get, the sooner you're likely to die. They ended up finding and reporting on some very disturbing takeaways after reviewing vaccine data on over 18 million citizens. We found that as the number of doses increases, the peak of deaths appears faster, meaning the more doses you get, the sooner you're likely to die within a shorter period. So the risk of COVID death increases with the more COVID vaccines you take. Wow, this is still coming. It's still coming. And, with Robert Malone and people like that now on the vaccine board and stuff, yeah, we're going to see accountability. We're going to see accountability. I talked to you about the Senate is in, negotiating the big, beautiful bill. And there's all kinds of surprises in there, that we really like that are going to be great, that you're going to hear once it comes out. Despite those criticism, keep it in perspective. We're going to get what we get, but you're going to get things you can't even believe they were going to do, which is great. Here's one. Congress considers federal student loan borrowing limits for GOP budget reconciliation bill. Senate Republicans believe the caps could save taxpayers at least $300 billion. Congress is considering these borrowing limits as Senate works on passing its version of the already passed House bill. Both chambers agree on limiting how much money can be borrowed for student loans. However, the chambers appear to disagree on how much. The House, says that you should only be able to borrow up to $50,000 for total for federal Parent Plus loans, but the Senate proposal would cap the loans at $65,000. There is currently no limit on the loans. Okay? And this has been the problem. What did the left do? How brilliant were they? Right? I talked to you last week about the cable TV. The left said, oh man, we're not going to be able to compete for viewers, so we're going to charge you a cable bill that's $120 or $150 or $200, and you're only watching 5 channels, but we're paying $10 a month out of your bill to CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, all these people to fund the left, right? They've always used our money. I've told you that. Here's another case. The student loan program, when you and I, old people, went to college, if you did, I went to Marine Bank in Erie, Pennsylvania to borrow $2,800 to go to Edinburgh University in Edinburgh, Pennsylvania. And they want to know what was your major and what was the likelihood you could pay this back. Okay? And I had to pay it back to the bank. Oh, well, the government took over the loans, pushed the banks out. No, we'll have a student loan program. Why? Because as soon as they did that, what happened? College tuition skyrocketed. We funded the left and their indoctrination machine. We funded it. And you could borrow all you wanted on a student loan, and then you couldn't get a job. oh, we'll forgive the loan, right? Isn't that what Joe Biden was trying to do? Now they're trying to limit how much you can borrow. They got to get out of it. You want to go to college? Let the college fund. You want to buy a car? Ford has a funding thing to finance your car. You want to go to college? Let Harvard or Yale or Penn State or Ohio State, let them fund your loan. And then they'll care about whether you have a job or not. We got to get the hell out of the college student loan programs. We got to get out. But this is a step that I didn't even know they were doing that I love. This is awesome, man. This is awesome. And then this is something you and I have been pushing for, and it's actually happening. Who counts? Trump poised to try to remove non-citizens from the census. Following a years-long surge in illegal immigration, the Trump administration is poised to challenge a long-standing but legally fraught practice, counting illegal aliens in the U.S. Census. President Trump tried to end the practice during his first term, but President Biden overturned his predecessor's policy before it was implemented. Now buoyed by red state attorney generals and Republican legislators, the second Trump administration is determined to clean up the census and make sure that illegal aliens are not counted, White House Deputy Secretary of Staff for Policy Stephen Miller said last month. What Miller didn't mention are the political implications of the administrator's moves. It could have significant political implications because the census count is used to apportion House seats, determining the number of votes in each state gets an electoral college for selecting the president, and drives the flow of trillions of dollars of government funds. Because what they do is they give money, federal money, to states according to number of congressional seats and Senate seats and stuff. Well, Senate seats don't matter. They each have 2. Okay? So this is big business. And the left, of course, wants to count the illegals. And that's why California and those places, get more House reps than they should. If the authorities had excluded such migrants from the 2010 census, Louisiana, Missouri, Montana, Ohio, and North Carolina all would have gained 1 seat in the House, while California would have lost 3 seats, and Texas and Florida would have each lost 1 seat. The total number of electoral college votes allotted each state changed accordingly. But he's going to try to do this, and we need to encourage this. And I've been talking to you on this podcast that we need to do the census over before 2026, because if we had not let them, remember, Trump was pushing for this. The radical leftists in the Census Bureau intentionally did not segment illegals from citizens when the president ordered it. And even though the court challenges hadn't stopped, and then they admitted right after Trump got illegally thrown out of office in 2020, we made a mistake. All the states that we made a mistake on were blue states who got more citizens, and red states got less. And there were like 12 House seats that changed because of the commies in the Census Bureau. I've called for Trump to fire them all, to wipe them out. And I've called for Trump to say, we don't do a census like it's 1860 and go door to door with a clipboard and say, how many people live here? Blah, blah. What are you talking about? With social media and all the databases that exist, we can do an electronic census every day of the frickin' week. Elon Musk knows who lives where. It's time to get into the modern age and quit letting bureaucrats have, just like, they don't want to do paper ballots. They want to do mail-in ballots, so you can't count the vote. We can't have a census that is rigged. And so you do an electronic census and maybe have 2 competing groups do that so they can't cheat. And then you do it like monthly. And there's no question. This crap that we actually say that we don't know how many illegals are in the United States. It could be 35 million. It could be 50 million. Estimates say, estimates, what the hell? Let's count them. They get EBT cards. They're getting money from these NGOs. There's a record of them. We know who they are. What do you mean you don't know? You don't know because they don't want us to know, because they don't want you to know how bad it really is. And you can't fix the problem until you know what the problem is. Go, President Trump, go. But keep going further. We want to just blow that up. Okay. got just a couple more things here that are to close the show. I posted this show. This story came from Martha from Washington Courthouse, Ohio, who's been a longtime supporter and just a great friend and advisor and all that. And she sent the story to me from the Epoch Times, which was a opinion piece. Trump will create good-paying jobs. Will Americans fill them? So I posted this story, and in the story, I put some interesting links. But I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's a really interesting commentary. And I'll read you a little bit. This is by Jeffrey Tucker from the Epoch Times. I have predicted many times that the hopes of America of restoring American manufacturing would ultimately falter on unforeseen grounds. Namely, there simply aren't enough working-age people in the United States who know how to do stuff, care enough to do it, and have the work ethic or mental discipline to make it through one full day's work or otherwise feel the inspiration to make themselves useful. Does that sound crazy? Well, the facts are these. There are 400,000 open factory and warehouse jobs today, and precious few people out there with the requisite training or ambition to take them. The jobs pay well. They are good jobs, but American workers have different expectations. Namely, they want to make the big bucks while doing nothing. They are mostly not prepared to enter a world of serious manufacturing. They are prepared for everything but that, having lived with the expectations that their college degrees will magically confer status on them sufficient to generate a big income stream forever. Now they are waking up to a new reality. They need skills they don't have, and they lack the ambition to acquire them. Does that sound harsh? The truth needs to be told. There are too many layabouts in the workforce who wave fake credentials for which they paid big bucks or borrowed the big bucks, but trained them for nothing at all. What they are mostly trained to do is fake out their professors, scroll social media, vamp and preen for cameras, talk the talk, use substances, and careen from one day to the next, living off the family or the government without a lick of skill or inspiration or drive. Anyone who runs a business knows the scores. There simply are not enough skilled workers out there. The fakes outnumber the real by 20 to 1. I said that number to a person experienced in the financial industry, and they corrected me and said it's 100 to 1. Maybe that's correct. I've done job interviews for years for nonprofits and for-profit companies. It is the most frustrating job there is. Finding people who can speak plain English without nasally vocal fries, rising intonation, or street talk peppered with fashionable gibberish is enough of a challenge. It's getting worse when you take apart what they're saying. They demand more time off, vacation days, health benefits, and more before they even know what the job is. They want to talk about the benefits. Americans have been trained to believe that a job is not a task, but a paycheck, not an applied skill at achieving something, but a racket, not a discipline to produce, but a welfare state to plug the holes in the streams of income in and out. Now, I added a couple links on this story. One says, click here to read 5 lies about blue-collar jobs. I also put a link to the Mike Rowe video on our website that's really good. When President Trump said, I'm going to take the $3 billion we give Harvard and I'm going to put it into trade schools. Okay? I've said to you that it is up to us, and this is a direct ask. If you're watching this podcast, you need to do something this week to help encourage people to get a trade school education. Now, what I think his op-ed is biased because, folks, only 26% of the population, maybe it's 28%, has a college degree. All right? That's a lot of people who don't. So why aren't they taking the jobs? They just need to understand the opportunity. You have to make that opportunity clear to them. So you can go to our website and click the share buttons and share this article with them. You can use our chapters player and share what I just read with them. That's our job. If we want to make America great again, we're going to have to rebuild the middle class. And you're not doing that with government handouts, are you? That's the guy in New York is selling. Doesn't work. You're going to do that by having dignity in a good job. And you're going to do that because they're going to raise the wages. And I've said to you, you watch Dirty Jobs by Mike Rowe. Don't tell me Americans won't work. I showed you the article last week where ICE came in and arrested all the workers at this meat plant in Omaha, Nebraska. And the next Monday, the whole office was filled with Americans filling out job applications. Don't tell me, this guy can't tell me that Americans won't work. We know better. I believe in us. I believe in we the people. But you and I have to take a personal interest in making this happen. So what are you going to do this week to help your local trade school? Do you even know where it is? Can you talk to them and say, what can I do to help you? Well, how many high school kids or college age kids who didn't go to college are sitting around, who are working at Starbucks or the fast food place? Say, listen, man, you got a path. You can get a job as a plumber, as an electrician, as a carpenter, as an HVAC person, and you can make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year if you just listen to me and let me help you and tell them how they can do it. That's up to us, you and me. We got to do this if we want to save our country. Trump's going to bring back, like I said, Trump's bringing back, oh my gosh, this week there's like another 3 companies offering billions of dollars. They're moving plants here. We've got to produce the workforce. You and I. What is your high school doing? Have they reinstituted the trades classes they used to have? Shop, even cosmetology, the legal aid things. Are they doing any of that stuff? If they're not, why not? Have you talked to your local school district? You pay taxes. You fund them. What are they doing to meet the moment? Are the school advisors only college educated people who tell you to go to college? Or is the school advisor someone who went to a trade school or worked in the trades? How would that be if the person in the career office at your high school supported the trades? Because guess what? I bet you 99% of you will find they don't. They don't. They're all college graduates who think you should go to college and get indoctrinated. We need to remove them. You need to tell the superintendent, we want you to change this person out by next school year. We want you, it's real clear. Send them that article. Send them the other articles we've done. Send them the Mike Rowe video, okay? And say, the writing's on the wall. The future for these kids in this school, for the vast majority of them, is not college, pal, so quit pushing it. Can you do that? I know you can do that. We're going to do that. Send me emails at info@wethepeopleconvention.org, info@wethepeopleconvention.org, and tell me what you did this week. Tell me how you did that, okay? Because that's really important. Now, I'm going to end the podcast with a little bit long video. It's like 4 minutes maybe. That I found a guy on X. Remember last week I told you about stablecoin and digital currency, and it wasn't Bitcoin, but there was some good there, but I didn't really understand it. And I asked you guys to write to me. A couple of you guys send me some things. This is really good. So sit back and listen to this, and it'll be posted on our website so you can share it with people. But this guy does an amazing job of explaining what the heck stable coins are. Listen up.
We came this close to rendering Wall Street obsolete, getting rid of the entire crony banking system. A new crypto bill dubbed the Genius Act is set to finally legalize a big chunk of the crypto industry called stablecoins. CNBC called the bill, quote, the first major legislative win for crypto. Treasury Secretary Bessent praised it as, quote, reinforcing dollar supremacy, which it does. Neither mentioned the most important part: stable coins are the most direct threat to the crony banking system in 50 years. And they obliterate the case for a government-run crypto called a CBDC. So first, what is a stablecoin? It's a kind of crypto designed to maintain one-to-one value with a currency like the dollar. The tokens are backed by assets in a vault, so cash, treasuries, and gold. The stablecoins don't go up or down like Bitcoin. Instead, if Bitcoin is gold you can email, a stablecoin is a dollar you can email. So it doesn't replace Bitcoin or gold for savings. It does replace US dollars for buying coffee. Now, because stablecoins use the same blockchain technology as Bitcoin, stablecoins are much cheaper to use. They can be zero fee compared to 2.5% on credit card swipe fees, which cost Americans nearly $200 billion per year. Stablecoins are also much faster than banks. Like email, payments can be instant, while your bank can take days to process and ask you what the money is for. Now, fast and cheap matter because those were the features they were using to sell a CBDC, a government-run stablecoin that would snoop on your spending and potentially control or seize your money. The new bill instead legalizes private stablecoins while mandating they back the tokens with money in the vault. This allows companies like Amazon or Walmart to effectively issue their own fully backed digital versions of dollars. Now compare this to banks, who are in the business of issuing digital versions of dollars, bank deposits, that are backed by nothing but Federal Reserve bailouts. This is cool because if Walmart can't fractional reserve your money, it could cripple the 3/4 of inflation that comes from banks printing money they don't have in the vault. Now, the bill could have been a lot better. It imposes the same so-called money laundering rules on stablecoins as banks, and it specifically bans paying interest on stablecoins, as in passing on the returns of vault money. That's because interest on stablecoins would have completely wiped out the crony banks. You'd have fully backed dollars paying interest. Still, on net, the bill is surprisingly anti-bank, legalizing the most important competing technology to banks in my lifetime. This is probably because the crypto lobby dumped a lot of money into this. In the last election, crypto donated over $100 million. Some estimates are up to $250 million, led by Coinbase and Ripple. Now that surpassed oil, gas, even pharma, plus another $18 million for Trump's inauguration, $5 million from Ripple alone. Now that doesn't come close to the billions the financial system donates, but it was enough for a camel's nose under the tent. So as next, brought to you by Unchained.com, the bill does not take effect until next year, but we already see companies, including Walmart and Amazon, lining up to issue stablecoins that would zero out banking fees for the hundreds of billions of transactions they make. Even Elon could get in the game with his planned X money that would also bypass banks and their fees. Most important, crypto apparently has the political heft to go toe-to-toe with the crony fractional reserve banking system that misrules our republic. Banks dodge this one, but they need to get lucky every time. Crypto only needs to break it once. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.
I thought that was really good. You can find him on X and follow him. He's got another video that I thought was very good about another topic involving digital money, things like that. But again, saving what $250 billion in fees that we paid for bank transactions. Guess who makes that money? The banks. So yeah, will I use Walmart's currency stablecoin? Hell yeah. Okay. Hell yeah. That's going to save me money instead of using a credit card. So I thought you'd enjoy that and you should share that. Okay. Now, again, the goal of this podcast is to, for you to tell more people about it. That's the number one thing, because the more people we have watching this podcast, the more people who know what's going on and can act on that. So you can send in your comments. If I'm wrong about something, you want to argue about something, you got something I should have covered that I didn't cover, that I missed, send it to info@wethepeopleconvention.org. info@wethepeopleconvention.org. We get them. We reply to those emails. We look at the stories. Now, if you don't just send me a video link without telling me what it's about, because we don't have time to go look and to figure out what it's about. So say, here's a video about illegal immigrants or whatever, but send it to me. So we really appreciate all of you who do that. But the other part is that we've got to act, right? I've asked you, and I said last week, and on our podcast page, it has a player, it has the chapters player, it has all the articles that used in this story with links to those actual articles, and then there's a our weekly to-do list. What action should you take this week? And on that, there's a link to a story or a video, and it says, send this to your House member, or send this to your congressman, or you send this to your school district or whatever. Okay. Last week, I said President Trump called for the House to pass the Genius Act that even Democrats voted for in the Senate and get it to his desk ASAP. I asked you to call them. Right now, they're waiting for the Senate to pass the big, beautiful bill. I'm asking you again to send that video to your congressman, because they don't know crap about anything, okay, about stablecoin. They'll appreciate, or at least the staffer will appreciate, because they don't know anything either, and say, and then send them the article that I'll link to that says President Trump wants you to pass this. Get it done, okay? So we take actions. It's really important. I want to do a couple more things. Last week, I told you that we finally broke through and we're having some success on YouTube and on TikTok, stuff like that. And I want to tell you, this week it got better. It increased, and I'm really excited. We seem to have figured out the formula, and people are telling me, I saw your shorts and stuff like that. And I'm using this company we paid that takes this podcast. I upload the whole podcast, and then it breaks it out into these 30-second, 1 minute and 30-second, not the whole thing, but like stories, that we've talked about, like the one about, will Americans fill the jobs? And they'll create these little pieces that I can then easily say, yeah, put this one on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and X. Or just put it on TikTok, or just put it on there. And it does it. And so I'm doing those like one a day to try to just get more people, because when they look at our shorts, they'll see our podcast, URL, they'll come, they'll start watching the podcast. So I wanted you to know we're making progress. And I know many of you are here today because of that. Welcome. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I hope it was different. I hope it was different than you thought it was. And I certainly hope it was valuable, and that you're now going to be part of our army that is in all 50 states that is advocating for our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. I have another thing I need to tell you, because it kind of shocked me. One of the things I do just to keep my sanity and to keep in touch with you guys and with our nation, I see emails when you guys donate, and many of you have recurring email, recurring donations, $5, $10, $15, $25, $50 a month, $100 a month. And these come to me like every day. Okay. And I don't pay much attention, but I see it happening. But I will randomly just say, I'm going to call that person and just thank them. Just see what they're thinking. See how they're doing. How's your health? What do you think I'm doing good? What should I change? How do you see whatever, the war in Iran or whatever? It just helps me connect to around the country. And that's partially why I can do this podcast, I think, better than a lot of people, because nobody really has, other than like Charlie Kirk or something like that, the ability I have to get inputs from such a wide number of people that it keeps me from making mistakes. It keeps me balanced. But I had something happen this week that never happened, and it shocked me. I called a woman who donates $10 a month, and I dialed the number, and she answered, and I said, is Mary there? And she said, this is Mary. And I said, well, this is Tom Zalestowski from the We the People Convention. And she paused, and she said, I'm sorry, I can't help you, and hung up. She thought I was calling to ask her for money. Now, why would I call someone who's donating $10 a month to ask them to give more money? Now, but I don't blame her, because she probably gets called from everybody else, but we're not everybody else. I can tell you, I never call people for money. Never. I have people call us and want to give us money, but all the donors to this organization, the thousands of donors in all 50 states who've given for 15 years, they give because after watching this, they go, yeah, what these guys are doing, I want to help support. And because of that, Donald Trump is president of the United States. And for those of you who are new, don't doubt me. In 2016, the We the People Convention literally, personally elected Donald Trump president, because he couldn't have been president if he didn't win Ohio. And more specifically, he couldn't have been president if he didn't win Northeast Ohio for the first time since 1958, a Republican winning Northeast Ohio. And your organization, this organization that you donate to, did that. We did that. And we did it again in 2024. Okay? It makes a difference. But people donate to this organization because it makes a difference. I will never call you and ask you for money. But if I do happen to call you, I just want to say hello, and I want you to just tell me what you're thinking, okay? So, Mary, I'm sorry that I intruded, and I didn't mean to upset you. And I'm sorry, that you felt that that's why I was calling. But I hope you'll understand now that I appreciate the $10 a month you give, and all the rest of you guys who give $5 and $8 and $10 and $25 and $50. We don't exist without you. God bless you all. Thank you so much. So Nan and I are going to have our 40th anniversary this week. Pretty big deal. we're pretty excited. And we're going to celebrate with our family and do some special things. And you know, we're just so thankful for the life we've had together. And I could not do this podcast, and I could not have led this organization for 15 years without my wife, Nanette. Let me tell you, there's a lot of hell we went through, and I couldn't have done it without her. Could not have done it if we didn't do it together, okay? And for 40 years, we've hung together. God willing, we'll be there for the 50th and maybe the 60th. Who knows? God only knows. But thanks, Nan. Couldn't do it without you. Okay? You guys have a great week. Enjoy the summer. We got a carnival going on in our community this week. We got ball games going on. You know, lots of good stuff. Enjoy the summer, but do your job as an American. Share the things in this video that you've seen. Get the word out. Keep supporting the president. Keep defeating the lies. Keep fighting the left and the Islamics and the red-green axis. Keep defending America. All right? God willing, we'll both be together again next week. You've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and God willing, we'll be back together next week. God bless you. God has already blessed America. See you next week.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight